Hey there, investigators. Welcome back to the channel. Before we dive in, if you're new here, we specialize in digging beneath the headlines of the biggest stories. So, hit that subscribe button and smash the like bell. It truly helps us continue this investigative work. And in the comments, let us know your thoughts on everything. Okay. Today's video is one you've probably seen screaming at you from your feed. The headline we're breaking down: Duggar news. Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar drops. Very shocking news. It will shock you. Clickbait? Absolutely. We all saw it. It's designed to make you click. But what's behind it? What is the actual, tangible reality of the Duggar family in this moment? The so-called shocking news is often a single fragment, a court document, a social media post, a rumor, blown into a universe of speculation. Our job today isn't just to react to a headline. Our job is to map the tectonic plates shifting beneath the famous family's feet. We're going to document the era of the fallout. The aftershocks. Because the real story isn't one piece of news. The real story is the unraveling. So, let's set the scene. Cast your mind back. The Duggars. Once the undisputed first family of reality TV fundamentalism. 19 kids and counting. A brand built on uniformity, on modest skirts, on side hugs, on the promise that a particular flavor of conservative, homeschooling, courtship-driven life led to perfection. Jim Bob, the patriarch. Michelle, the mother with the sweet voice and the steadfast beliefs. The children, a ladder of J-names, a well-oiled machine. The show wasn't just entertainment, it was a propaganda machine for a lifestyle. And for years, it worked. Millions watched. The family preached, they published books, they became icons. But then, the cracks. First, the earlier scandals, the ones that rocked the family but were, controversially, managed. Sealed. Tucked away. The show was cancelled, then briefly revived as Counting On, focusing on the adult children. But the foundation was compromised. And then, the earthquake. The arrest, trial, and conviction of Josh Duggar. Not for moral failings within their own strict code, but for federal crimes involving the exploitation of children. This wasn't a scandal that could be side-hugged away. This was a legal, factual, horrifying reality that blasted the Duggar facade into a million pieces. The shocking news that drops now, any news about Jim Bob and Michelle, doesn't exist in a vacuum. It exists in the crater left by that conviction. So when we see a headline like that, we have to ask, is this about the crumbling of the patriarch's control? Is it about financial strain? Is it about grandchildren being kept away? Is it about a public rift? Every fragment is a piece of that larger puzzle. Let's talk about Jim Bob and Michelle directly. Their public presence has diminished drastically. Once omnipresent on TV, they are now largely seen through the filtered lens of their children's social media, or in brief, often grim-faced, courtroom appearances during the trial. Their authority, their narrative control, has been irrevocably shattered. The family ministry, if it ever truly existed beyond the TV screen, is in tatters. The brand is toxic. So, what is left for them? The shocking news often hinted at revolves around a few key areas. First, finances. 19 kids and counting was a massive financial engine. Reports of payments, the structure of the reality TV income, have always been murky. With that income stream gone, with legal defenses to fund for Josh, with an entire fleet of adult children who were raised not for the traditional workforce but for the family brand, the financial pressure must be astronomical. Properties, assets, the famous Duggar compound, all of it could be under strain. A headline about a property sale, a lien, a business closure, that gets blown up into shocking news. But in reality, it's a predictable consequence of the empire's collapse. Second, family dynamics. This is the most fertile ground for speculation. We have seen, clearly, diverging paths. Some adult children appear to remain closely aligned with Jim Bob and Michelle. Their social media echoes the old talking points, the same theology. They live nearby, they participate in the family's remaining public endeavors like the used car lot. But others have shown signs of what can only be called a quiet, careful distance. It's in the wording of captions. It's in the choice to not appear at certain family gatherings. It's in the decision of some of the daughters' husbands to take jobs out of state. It's in the subtle but noticeable shift in how some of the daughters dress, still modest by mainstream standards, but perhaps a pair of jeans, a slightly less frumpy sweater. These are tectonic shifts in the Duggar universe. The grandchildren are another key. Jim, Bob and Michelle, who built their entire identity on prolific parenthood, now face a reality where access to their many grandchildren may not be guaranteed. Some parents, mindful of the past and the devastating crimes of their oldest brother, may be enforcing boundaries that were unthinkable in the old regime. The idea that a daughter-in-law or a son-in-law might say, "No, you can't have unsupervised access," or "We will be spending holidays on our own," that, within the Duggar framework, is revolutionary. And it would be a devastating, personal blow to Jim, Bob and Michelle's core identity. Then there is the legal and spiritual fallout. Jim Bob's testimony during Josh's trial was scrutinized. His role in the initial handling of past events was the subject of national debate. His credibility, in the eyes of the public and perhaps in the eyes of some of his children, was damaged. Michelle, often portrayed as the gentle heart of the family, has receded into near total silence. What is the state of their marriage under this pressure? The pressure of a son in federal prison for crimes so heinous, the pressure of a legacy destroyed, the pressure of financial ruin, the pressure of a family potentially fracturing? The devout faith that once seemed to glue everything together must be undergoing a trial of its own. Do they question? Do they double down? The headlines love to speculate: Jim, Bob and Michelle on the brink of divorce, or Michelle Duggar's mental health crisis. These are the darkest, most exploitative corners of the clickbait. But the underlying question of how two people survive such a cataclysm is a valid, human, and tragic one. Let's analyze the drop itself. Often, these shocking news drops are based on a sliver of public record. A new filing in an ongoing lawsuit. A zoning permit for a change on their property. A sighting at a courthouse that could be for anything. Or, it's based on the social media activity of one of the adult children. A post is deleted. A comment is left. A photo is posted and then edited. In the hypervigilant world of Duggar followers, every pixel is analyzed. A daughter doesn't wear her headband for a week. Theory explodes about a break from fundamentalism. A son-in-law mentions a difficult season? Theory explodes about a rift with Jim, Bob. This ecosystem feeds the clickbait machine. The headline, "It will shock you," is a promise to curate and amplify these fragments into a narrative of collapse. But we need to be responsible. We need to separate the exploitation from the analysis. The real, documentable story is one of institutional failure. The Duggar family project was an institution. It had rules, a hierarchy, an economic model, a public relations strategy, and a theology. That institution has failed. Spectacularly. What we are witnessing now is the long, slow, messy process of what happens afterward. It's the power vacuum. It's the succession crisis where there is no clear successor because the throne itself is broken. It's the members of the institution, the adult children, navigating a world they were profoundly unprepared for, with the glare of the public still upon them. Some are building their own brands, carefully. Jinger Duggar Vuolo's book, for instance, was a watershed. While couched in religious language, it was a direct critique of the specific belief system, the Institute in Basic Life Principles, IBLP, that shaped her upbringing. She didn't blast her parents by name, but she blasted the framework they chose to raise her in. That is a seismic event. It provides a language for the distance other siblings might feel. It legitimizes the idea of a path away from Tontitown, Arkansas, both geographically and ideologically. Jill Duggar Dillard and her husband Derek have been more directly confrontational, speaking about financial transparency, about boundaries, about their struggles with Jim Bob's control. They've sat for interviews. They've used social media to state facts about their estrangement. So, when a headline screams about Jim Bob and Michelle, it's often reacting to the actions of their adult children. A move, a post, an interview clip. Jim Bob and Michelle are now, in many ways, passive subjects of the news. The agency has shifted. The shocking news is often that another brick has fallen from their wall. Another child makes a choice independent of the family compound. Consider the legal ramifications that are still unfolding. Josh Duggar's appeals. The civil lawsuit. These are long, draining processes that keep the family, and especially Jim Bob and Michelle as his parents, tethered to the horror. Every court date, every filing, is a fresh wound and a fresh headline. It prevents any chance of the story fading away. It's a life sentence of public shame for them, albeit of a profoundly different order than the one Josh is serving. Their public life is essentially a prolonged legal and public relations crisis management that they are losing. Financially, again, the math doesn't work. Supporting an adult child's federal legal defense is ruinously expensive. Maintaining multiple properties without the massive influx of TV money is a challenge. The family's businesses, the car lot, the real estate ventures, are not the cash cows that a hit TV show was. They are local businesses in a small Arkansas town. And they operate under the shadow of the Duggar name, which now repels as many as it attracts. The whispers about debt, about selling assets, are not just tabloid fodder, they are the logical conclusion of this financial trajectory. A shocking property sale would be, in fact, a predictable step in asset liquidation. Spiritually and socially, where do Jim Bob and Michelle go? Their church community is likely divided. Some may rally around them, citing forgiveness and grace. Others may shun them, blaming their parenting, their cover-ups, for enabling evil. Their national standing as spiritual examples is annihilated. The speaking engagements, the book deals endorsing their family model, are gone forever. They are isolated in a way they have never been. From a life surrounded by 19 children and a camera crew, to a life potentially alone in a big, quiet house, grappling with a reality they could never have imagined. This is the documentary of an aftermath. We are not at the beginning, and we are not at the end. We are in the long middle. The shocking news headlines are like flashbulbs popping in this long, dark corridor. They illuminate a fragment, a tired expression, a sold van, a missed birthday, and pretend it's the whole picture. The whole picture is a decades-long experiment in family branding and fundamentalism meeting the unforgiving wall of reality, criminality, and modern scrutiny. The control Jim Bob exerted was total. It controlled narratives, it controlled relationships, it controlled finances, it controlled image. That control is now the subject of lawsuits, of tell-all books, of YouTube analyses like this one. The irony is absolute. The man who sought to control everything has lost control of everything. The narrative is now owned by prosecutors, by journalists, by estranged children, by internet commentators. Michelle, who voiced the blanket training child-rearing method to the world, now has grandchildren she may not be allowed to blanket train. The circle has closed in the most painful way imaginable. So, when you see that clickbait, Jim Bob and Michelle Duggar drops. Very shocking news, you now have the context. It is a data point in the graph of a collapse. It is a signal from the ruins. The question isn't what is the shocking news? The real questions are, how much further can the finances fall? How many more adult children will publicly or privately step away? What will the final financial and legal settlements look like? Will there be a moment of public reckoning or apology from Jim Bob and Michelle themselves? Or will they remain in their bunker of faith, interpreting the catastrophe as a spiritual trial to be endured? The story continues. It will continue past this video. It will continue past the next headline drop. The children are still young. The grandchildren are growing up. The decisions made now, about relationships, about therapy, about faith, about money, will echo for decades. The Duggar story is no longer a reality show. It is a real-time case study in the collapse of a dynasty, the dangers of patriarchal control, the fallout of trauma, and the fragile, painful pathways to individual autonomy. And that is why we document it. Not for the shock, but for the understanding. Not for the gossip, but for the human landscape it reveals. This is a story about America, about religion, about television, about family, and about crime. It is all of those things woven into one unsettling tapestry. But our time is running short for today. And yet, the story does not end. In fact, we've only just begun to connect the dots from the crumbling legacy to the future lawsuits that are brewing behind the scenes. Because sources close to the family's legal team suggest that the financial disclosures from the last court case were just the tip of the iceberg. What about the contracts from the early days of 19 Kids and Counting? What about the royalties, the syndication deals that might still be generating revenue? Who controls that money now? Is it held in a family trust that Jim Bob administers, or have the distributions changed in light of the fractured relationships? And then there's the matter of the grandchildren's stories. They are the true second act. They are being raised in vastly different environments. Some are in homes that mirror the insular, IBLP-saturated world of their grandparents. Others are in homes where television is allowed, where pants are worn, where higher education is considered, where the name Duggar is a complicated heritage to be managed, not a brand to be promoted. This generation gap, between Michelle's grandchildren, could be wider than any ocean. The cousins may grow up with radically different worldviews, different levels of access to the internet, different understandings of their own family's very public history. The potential for future memoirs, interviews, and diverging paths among them is a story that will unfold in 15 or 20 years. The long tail of this scandal is generational. Furthermore, consider the physical landscape. The Duggar compound, the cluster of homes around the main house. It was a physical manifestation of control. But as adult children move away, to other states, like Texas or North Carolina, that compound could become a ghost town. A monument to a failed vision. Will Jim Bob and Michelle downsize? Will they sell parcels of land to their remaining loyal children? Or will they hold on, maintaining the empty nest to the extreme, a daily reminder of what was and what is no longer? The real estate decisions alone could fill a dozen headlines, each one touted as shocking. The health of Jim Bob and Michelle is another quiet factor. The stress of the last several years is incalculable. They are not young. The emotional and physical toll of a federal trial, a son's conviction, public hatred, family estrangement, and financial worry is a heavy burden. While it is tasteless to speculate on medical issues, it is a simple fact that prolonged, extreme stress has manifest consequences. Their ability to lead, to manage, to even maintain their own public facade, could diminish with time and health. What then? Who steps in? Is there a successor among the sons? Or does the family structure dissolve into a loose association of separate households, united only by name and a painful past? Let's also talk about the community of Tontitown and Springdale. This is not a story happening in a vacuum. The Duggars were local celebrities, then local pariahs. Their presence in town, at church, at the grocery store, is now fraught. For a family that prized their reputation above almost all else, this daily, quiet humiliation in their own hometown must be a particular kind of agony. The shocking news could sometimes be as simple as a reported altercation at a local restaurant, or a change in their church attendance. It's the micro-level of the collapse, the granular detail of a life lived under a microscope that now views you with contempt or pity. The theological reckoning is perhaps the most profound layer. The Duggars' faith was not a private matter, it was their product. They sold it. When the product fails so catastrophically, what happens to the faith of those who sold it? Do they question the doctrines they espoused? The blanket training, the courtship models, the patriarchal authority, the modesty doctrines? Or do they dig in deeper, interpreting the disaster as a test from God, a refining fire? Michelle's famous, always upbeat cadence, can it possibly remain in private? Or has it been silenced by a depression so deep it mirrors the quiet she now maintains publicly? This internal, spiritual conflict is the most inaccessible part of the story, and yet the most central. It is the engine that built the machine. If the engine is now sputtering, what is the sound it makes? Is it the sound of doubt, or the sound of defiant, desperate prayer? We also cannot ignore the role of the internet and platforms like this one. We are part of the ecosystem. The demand for Duggar news is what fuels the clickbait farms. Our analysis, even when seeking to be respectful and factual, contributes to the endless churn of commentary. It creates a feedback loop. A Duggar posts a vague Bible verse, it's analyzed for hidden meaning, that analysis becomes an article, the article prompts a response or a deletion from the Duggar, which sparks more analysis. The family, who once used media masterfully, is now caught in a media whirlpool they cannot escape. They are both the source and the subject, and they have lost all director's credit. This brings us to the concept of legacy. What is the Duggar legacy? It is no longer 19 kids and counting. It is now a cautionary tale, a footnote in the history of reality TV about the dangers of fame meeting fundamentalism, about the secrets that fester in closed systems. It is a case study used in discussions about homeschooling oversight, about financial transparency in reality TV, about the handling of abuse in religious communities. Jim Bob and Michelle's life's work has been recontextualized. They are no longer pioneers of a big family movement, they are the architects of a system that produced a federal criminal and immense public pain. How does one live with that? How does one get up each morning knowing that your chosen path, evangelized to millions, is now a national symbol of failure and hypocrisy? The psychological weight of that is unimaginable. And so, the drops will continue. Because the fallout continues. Because bills come due, children make choices, legal deadlines pass, social media posts are made, and the world watches. Each drop is a snapshot of the decay process. It is not a single event, it is a chronic condition. As we near the end of our time today, and remember, this story doesn't end, we're just pausing our narration, we must look to the horizons. The near-term horizons. The next appeal. The next birthday of a grandchild where a certain set of grandparents are notably absent from photos. The next property record filed in Washington County. The next quiet, non-publicized visit to the federal prison in Texas. These are the data points waiting to be found, to be amplified into the next round of shocking news. But you, our investigators, you now have the framework. You can see past the clickbait to the slow, grinding tectonic shift. You can understand that the real shock wasn't in a single headline. The real shock was the verdict. The real shock was the conviction. Everything since is the echo, the reverberation through the halls of a family and a belief system that could not contain the truth. So, what's next? That's for you to watch, to critically analyze. And we'll be here, doing the same. Because this documentary is still being filmed by life itself. We're just providing the commentary track. If you want to follow every twist and turn of this ongoing story with us, make sure you are subscribed. Hit that like button if this deep dive helped you see beyond the clickbait. It tells the algorithm you want more content like this. And let us know in the comments below, which aspect of the Duggar fallout do you find most significant? The financial, the familial, the spiritual, or the legal? Or is it the intersection of all four? And remember, the most shocking news is often the news that isn't a surprise at all, but the inevitable result of choices made years ago, now coming home to roost. The Duggars built a house on a foundation of secrets and control. The earthquake has come. We are watching the walls continue to crack, one by one. Stay vigilant, investigators. We'll see you in the next video, where we'll dive into